Hey, Greg.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Yourself?
Not bad. Not
It
bad.
is a beautiful evening in Maplewood, I will tell you.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Hey, Chief.
How's everybody?
What's happening, everybody?
It's one of those nights where if we were meeting over at OEM, we could just walk over to the pool, have the meeting poolside. Be lovely.
Maybe my last meeting, we can have it in person. Are we ready for that?
I second that. I like
It's
that.
really so much easier.
It is easier. I have to agree. It is
Yep.
easier.
Yep.
Although Chief, and by that I mean Chief Duvall, when we did it in person, for many years, we literally did it in the room next to your office. So
Yeah. That was
That's
good
easy.
too.
I do remember that. Yeah.
so I think the problem may not much to be with you doing it in person as doing it in person, in a place where you need to walk somewhere, outside your floor. So we have all the members of the Public Safety Committee. We have the Township Administrator, Appropriate Authority, and we have the Chief and the Deputy Chief of the Fire Department. And it is after 7:30. So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Maplewood Township Public Safety Committee meeting to order. And Chief Weber, as usual, we're going to start with the overview, the highlights of the monthly, and
Okay.
we're on March.
Okay.
So if you want to, we got your reports today, but if you want to walk us through any highlights or anything you wish to call to our attention from March.
Okay. It's a typical report. Our numbers are pretty steady as far as responses, 263 responses. The COVID cases are still low. We only had 3 confirmed COVID transports during the month of March. Of course, there are those that are suspected that we're not sure, but those are the ones that were confirmed. So those are good numbers. There were 10 responses to fires, including 2 car fires and 8 structure fires. All the structure fires were mutual aid and all in Irvington. We did assist Millburn in a search for missing persons in South Mountain Reservation. We've had that a couple times, and when he built the Avalon building, the developer purchased a vehicle for us. It's sort of a trail quad vehicle, and we utilize that on several occasions in reservations. So it's nice to be able to take advantage of stuff like that. We did, and the gentleman was, I think he had some mental health issues, but he was located safely, so that all worked out well. There were 7 motor vehicle accidents with injuries during the month of March, which is actually a large uptick, and I don't know what to attribute that to. Hopefully it's just an anomaly. There was 1 pedestrian struck by a motor vehicle, and that was at the intersection of Valley and Parker. We have kind of been tracking it over the last 18 months because obviously we're having issues with pedestrians being struck. But the victim was a minor and he did not suffer serious injuries, so that was good. Otherwise, very few carbon monoxide, 1 elevated carbon monoxide call, but the residents arrived home to find the detectors going, so no one had serious exposure. 13 power lines down, 9 natural gas. Obviously, Captain Colachuga, we're still doing our decon at the firehouses and on the apparatus. On the 2nd of March, we had our quarterly officers meeting at the OEM building in person. And then we had a leadership training course for all the officers following that. It was presented by retired North Hudson Regional Fire Department Chief Anthony Avillo. And interestingly enough, Anthony Avillo is the author of Fireground Strategies, which is one of the textbooks used for both the captains and deputy chiefs promotional exams. So it was really, really good presentation, well received by the membership, or I should say the officer corps, and got a lot out of it. We got the new striker stretchers installed on March 4th. On the 5th, we started the gas emergency training with PSE&G at the OEM building. All 4 platoons got that training. One of the moves we made is we got rid of the shredded contract as a cost-saving maneuver. I just calculated that we could buy a commercial size shredder, and in approximately 8 months, the shredder will be paid for. And I just kept signing that purchase order each month for shredded, and it seemed like a waste of money to me. So we're going to see how this works out. So far, we had one of our officers on light duty. He's been going through and getting rid of some older records, and he's been utilizing this thing like very heavily, and it's working great. So I think that's going to work out for us. The TB testing was done for all department members during the month of March. It was conducted by care station nurses. We attended the Essex County Chief Association meeting, and those meetings were resumed in person in May. On the 11th, we had another FEMA call. So we attended several FEMA calls regarding Tropical Storm Isaias, and it looks like we're going to get some money from that eventually. It's just a long process. We met with the new administrator in March and just to kind of go over things and see, kind of get to know one another and describe how the department operates. I attended the New Jersey Career Chiefs meeting on the 18th. We talked a little bit about this. We were able to obtain instruction from Milburn Audi to do forced entry and search and rescue training. And so they did a safety walkthrough on the 19th, and we were able to utilize that structure for all 4 platoons, got some really great training out of that. We were able to get rid of some hazmat that we acquired. We used to use what was called AFFF, which was a foam we used for suppression of flammable liquids. And it had been determined that it was a caustic and cancer-causing agent. And so they had a disposal program at the Nutley Hazmat. Nutley's our hazmat rep for the county, and they were able to get rid of that during the month of March, which was great because it's been sitting around in storage for several years trying to find a way to get rid of it. Another Zoom meeting about the Isaias. Let's see. We did a Zoom training for Power DMS, which is at the end of the month. And that's going to actually, Chris, I'm sure is going to use that a lot more going forward. It's a good program, and we've had it for about 2 years, very much underutilized. So we're trying to start using that a little bit more than we have in the past. So that's pretty much the highlights for the month of March. Any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. And I don't have any questions on the monthly, and I think the overtime, I don't think there's really anything we need you to say on that unless Committeeman DeLuca has questions. Other than just to note that I would expect, unless you correct me otherwise, that given the contractual situation that May and June, we're probably going to see overtime tick up a bit, given that guys who didn't use time last year have until the end of June to use that time. So I know it's a use it or lose it situation. So the guys who worked and didn't take the time all last year through COVID have until mid this year. So I would imagine that now that things are opening up a bit and the weather's getting a little warmer and you guys don't want to lose that time, I would think over the next 2 months, we'll see that overtime tick up a little bit as guys use the vacation time. And, that's something that, we've certainly anticipated. So, is any reason not to anticipate that, Chief?
Well, actually, fortunately, guys have used a lot of that time. There's not a whole lot left of that use it or lose it time. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that there are a couple of factors. We had one fireman that was out, family leave. His wife had a baby, so he was out. We have another officer that's out with a workman's comp injury with his neck. Now he probably will not be back in the near future, but getting the one fireman back and the advantage of guys, a lot of the guys use that time you were mentioning. I'm hoping we will see a slight uptick just because that time of the year, but hopefully it's not as dramatic as anticipated because guys did take advantage of some of that time in January, February, and March. So we'll see what happens, but I'm optimistic.
Okay, Chief. Mayor or Committeeman DeLuca, any questions on the March monthly or the OT for March and April?
No questions.
Okay. Chief or Deputy Chief, anything since we last spoke, not necessarily in March, but in April or so far in May, in terms of interactions with your brothers in South Orange on the automatic response agreement? Any progress there?
Well, there's several things. I think we may have mentioned at the last meeting that we did meet at REMS, and so that ball is rolling, which is getting South Orange on REMS, which I'll have to check either with the chief in South Orange or REMS to see how close they are. But we sat through the meeting with it was the Orange chief, the Irvington chief, myself, and Chief Sullivan from South Orange, and they're doing great things at REMS, and I think it's only going to get better. So hopefully they get them on board sooner than later. That's not going to prevent us from going forward with the mutual aid agreement. There was an agreement drawn up. It's in the hands of Roger Desiderio. We had a meeting with the mayor and Administrator Jamison and myself and Roger a week ago Friday, and it seemed pretty good. He was just going to tweak a few things, and so I actually reached out to Roger today to see the status of that. I think it's maybe the mayor might have a comment on that one. When that's finalized and signed, I think we're good to go. So I think the first of the month is a very realistic date to move forward with that, but it's not all in my hands. I mean, I guess there's some other things have to fall into place. We do have live burn training scheduled for June, and Chris can comment on that. But that's a great thing. It's great for us, but we've done it all along. It's really, really good for South Orange because they haven't had it. I don't know if they've ever had it. It's a requirement. It's fantastic training. I know last year I think the mayor attended and saw exactly what transpires at the live burn training, how valuable it is. And again, I'll mention that anybody on this call that is at all interested in at least observing or actually engaging is welcome to join us to see what goes on in the live burn training. But that's a good step because we're working together, actually charging lines and having actual fire in structures and advancing lines and simultaneous ventilation and suppression, and a lot of good stuff that goes on in at that training. So that's it. So otherwise, look, we're ready to go. Hopefully South Orange is ready to go. And if some of these things fall into place over the next couple of weeks, I don't see any reason why June 1st is an unrealistic date.
That's outstanding, Chief. And I appreciate your efforts to keep moving that forward. So just to confirm, so the live burn training is going to be a joint training with SOFD?
That's correct. Yeah.
And what's the date on that?
Chris, what's the exact dates on that?
So it's the first week in June. It's Tuesday through Friday, June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. It's going to be at the Morris County Fire Academy, and we're going to be we're going to start probably around 9 o'clock, and then we should be done by 1.
All right. I may try to recruit the South Orange Village president, and see if her and I can come out there and suit up with you guys.
I'm sure she'll take advantage of that. For sure.
Or at least stand back and observe. But I know last year the mayor got up close. Our mayor got up close and personal.
Yeah, we can certainly get you. We can get you involved.
Yeah.
just don't wear a suit, Greg. That's all.
Yes, dress lightly.
I generally don't make the mistake of overdressing.
It's a little inside joke, but let's just say, or don't try to do too many things in the same day. How about that?
Yeah.
No, I hear you. Okay, so that's good progress. And are we straight on the radios with South Orange? The talk groups and all that. We're coordinating. We're able to talk to each other. We're here.
Yeah, we're operational as far as the radio is concerned. Like I say, we're not quite there with the dispatching, but I think that's the funding was approved, obviously, from South Orange. They're on board. The chief attended the meeting, and that's a matter of, in my opinion, it should be very soon, but I'm not the technical guy down at REMS. They're the ones who have to actually get them set up. So I would say, as far as the dispatching is concerned, it should be in the next, Chris, I would say, a month to 6 weeks at the latest to have them on board with the dispatching?
Yeah,
we can talk on the fire ground, no problem, but I'm talking about having the simultaneous dispatch where, signal 11 comes or a report of fire comes, we both get dispatched on the same dispatch. That's a little bit further out.
Yeah, from that meeting we had back in April, I know the goal was June 1st. I know that's literally 2 weeks away, but that was the goal. So we could follow up with REMS and see how far along they are with getting South Orange on their dispatch. But I don't see why we wouldn't get it done within the next 2-3 weeks.
That would be great. Yeah, if you could follow up on that and just keep us in the loop when you figure out either an approximate time or just confirmation that it's done. I know that because we finally we got the will, and now it's just a matter of making our way there.
Yeah.
So appreciate it.
I think the live burn training, the radio communication thing, it's all kind of good timing. It's kind of converging at once. I think that's going to help things. So it'll work out. I'm
And down at
confident.
Rems, we have a couple good connections there. So one of our retired guys works there, and so
One of our
oh, I'm sorry, Chief. Go ahead.
2 active guys work there as well. So
Yep.
we got
Yeah, I think, I mean, just the conversation we had, I'm pretty confident. As the chief said, it'll come together. The live burn, automatic aid, all that's coming together. Rogers moving forward, and the radios. So I'm very optimistic about like all these things coming together at the right time.
excellent.
Great. So next on the agenda is item 4, which is consolidation update. Committeeman DeLuca or Mr. Mayor, you want to give us an update on any progress since we last met?
Yeah, absolutely. So the steering committee, which is made up of, the 4 core individuals on the Maplewood side and the South Orange side, we were going back and forth the last couple of weeks with Charles, who's a consultant. I know that the FMBA had reached out to me, and I communicated to Kevin, who leads it, that we weren't ready yet, which is true. So we actually ended up having two more meetings. We had our final meeting on Monday, May 3rd. And that's when we got the final. And from that meeting, we decided to reach out to the DCA to set up a conversation. So at this point, we feel like we're in pretty good shape. I need to follow with the FMBA to start having conversations with Mr. DeLuca and I. And I do believe Ms. Collum did this week. So at this point, we want to kind of share the final report, just like we had talked briefly with you, Greg, and others just last week. So we're now moving forward with just, I guess really just having conversations about the findings at this point. So I'm very optimistic. I think it's a good report. There was a lot of input from obviously chief and deputy chief and other key stakeholders. So that's where we are at this point.
Great. That takes us to the end of the agenda items before public comment. Before we open it up to public comment, Mr. DeLuca, Mayor McGehee, Administrator Jimes, anything else you want to ask the chief or the deputy chief? Going, gone. Chief or deputy chief, anything else you want to bring to our attention before we open it up to the public?
The only topic I'd like to just touch base on a little bit is we're getting down to the wire here. I got about 6 weeks left. And even, so we mentioned in the last meeting, and I've mentioned to the administrator about interviews. So both the captains and for the chief's position, the guys, the captains worked extremely hard preparing and made, the sacrifice you have to make to prepare for this. Guys did really, really well. They put their resumes together. So they're ready and they're anxious, and there's a lot of anxiety there. Obviously, that's what happens in the system. It's all good anxiety, but guys are anxious. They want to know. So I was hoping if we can move forward, at least anticipate a date so we can kind of give them a heads up. They're asking on a daily basis as to, what's the status of the interviews. So if we can, in the next week or so, kind of at least get an idea of when we might be able to set that up, that would really help things.
Chief, that's fair enough. I'll put that on for discussion in closed session at the next TC meeting, which will be Tuesday, the 18th. And we can discuss that, since it's personnel related, and also just so, the different TC members can look at their calendars.
Excellent.
So I'll put that on. So, we can discuss that next Tuesday. And then, if you don't hear from one of us, I would think that, Administrator Jimes can probably give you a report the next morning at department head or otherwise. He can reach out to you on that Wednesday
I appreciate that. Thank you.
meeting. So we can let you know within a week.
Great. Thank you.
Anything else before we open it up to public comment? Not seeing anything. I'm gonna open it up to public comment. You can either raise your hand or you can unmute yourself. First, I'm gonna go with Kim Takach.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Takach. I live on Franklin Ave in Maplewood. So I recently heard the concerning news that in South Orange, they're installing a significant number of new security cameras throughout town. And it made me realize that I don't actually know very much about Maplewood's use of security cameras. So I'm just wondering if someone here could speak briefly about Maplewood's use of cameras and if there are any plans to make changes to surveillance. More specifically, how many cameras are there? How is footage stored and used? And if there's any kind of facial recognition technology used, anything like that. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Koch, this is the fire department portion of the meeting, but the police chief is here. So rather than make you wait around for what could potentially be a long agenda for the police, Chief Duvall, is that a question you'd be able to field?
Oh, thank you so much. Sorry, I didn't realize there was only public comment for the fire.
No, that's all right. We appreciate you attending, and the chief actually is here, so if he doesn't mind, maybe we can answer your question now.
Thanks.
So I wasn't taking notes, so I'll give you an overall view. I don't have a number count for you. We generally consider our cameras by location and not by number. So if we have an intersection, say Spring and Prospect, and there's 4 cameras there, we count it by where they are, not that there's 4 cameras there. They are passively recording. They are not actively monitored. They are reviewable. There is no facial recognition. I did not include any camera upgrades in the 2021 budget. But I missed something.
Mr. Koch, I don't think the chief is anticipating the question. So is there anything in the because you had a multi-part question, you can unmute yourself if there's anything you missed or any portion of your question they didn't cover.
Yeah, no, those are the main pieces. I understand that you don't have any like specific numbers, but do you have a sense of like how many intersections or I mean, I feel like I don't know very much at all about how it works. So if you don't have numbers, that's fine.
Well, I mean, generally speaking, we have a lot of intersections that are covered, most of our major intersections. I don't have a list, and you can anticipate there'll be several cameras at every intersection. Usually there's probably 1 covering every angle. Most intersections are cross intersections, so most have at least a minimum of 4 to catch 1 each direction. As I indicated, they're passively recorded, reviewable. They are stored. The data is stored here at police headquarters on our server. And as I indicated, I didn't put in, they do not do facial recognition, and I did not include any for 21 upgrades. Okay,
I appreciate that. And how about public parks? Are there like does Memorial or Maple Crest or DeHart have security cameras?
There are a few in each park.
Okay, a few in each park. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And Chief, those are also, to my understanding, those would be those are passively recording. They're not actively. There's no one sort of actively watching those feeds, right?
Correct. I believe we have only 2 or 3 in Memorial Park, but there's only a couple in each park that generally cover the playground areas.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when you say passively recording, so if we knew there was an incident we wanted to look at or something we were curious about, we could go and find the camera for an intersection or a particular location and pull it up for that time period.
Yeah.
But it's not as though there's a bank of monitors somewhere and someone sitting in a room looking at all the different.
And none of them are live.
Right. Okay.
So every camera is reviewable. I believe the closest, our best cameras are something to the effect of 10 minutes in the past.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Chief. Thank you,
Great.
Mr. Koch.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate you letting me go out of turn here.
No problem at all.
Take care.
Does anyone else have anything for public comment? Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, just really quick. I just want to commend the committee and I guess the business administrator for putting the minutes of the police department and the fire department minutes on the website, which had been asked for and is now present there. not exactly up to date, but close, much better than it had been. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
And noted and appreciated, and thank you, Mr. Jimes, and also to both chiefs. You know, I think that is something that it had fallen off, but I think we're looking to get our house back in order in that front. So thanks for noticing. Anyone else for public comment? And again, we're in the fire department portion of the agenda. Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the fire department portion of the Public Safety Committee meeting. I will thank Chief Weber and Deputy Chief Ariema for their time tonight, and of course for their service. So Chief, just one more of these for you.
That's it.
You know, so we'll try to make the next one special.
Thanks.
Cake, Greg. We need cake.
Yeah, we definitely. I mean, Dinglestack got cake, so you know.
Yeah.
I gotta.
Well, I
Do it
got to eat some
outside.
of his,
Maybe we can grill.
Well, that's a
Do
good
barbecue.
I like that.
So I, you know, as always, you gentlemen are more than welcome to stay for the police portion, but you know, understand that you know the fires don't put themselves out. So you know, you guys are busy, and you know, if you choose to leave, have a good evening, and thanks again.
Thank you all very much. Have a great night.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you,
All right.
Deputy. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. All right. So moving right along into the police portion of the agenda, Chief Duvall, you're in the hot seat. As usual, we'll go to the monthly report. You know, we got the report from Debbie, but feel free to take us through any highlights from March or anything else you wanna bring to the Public Safety Committee's attention.
Okay. UCR reported crime data is down 30% for the month. That's March 20 compared to 21. Year to date, we're down 43.5%. The big driver of UCR reported incidents or crimes is auto theft and actual theft, where it's down considerably. Actual theft, the majority of it is theft from unlocked vehicles. So that is overshadowed our typical shoplifting for the month and for year to date. So the trend that we're seeing now, which is both for the month and year to date, is the theft of stolen cars, which generally correlates with the theft from vehicles. So when they go into the vehicles and find what they want, they realize they found the key, so they take the car. So that is so knock on wood, auto theft is the only trend that we're seeing. I continue to ask. We've recently put it back up on our website. People not to leave their valuables in the vehicle, and in all cases, there's no reason to leave your keys in the car. Order valet key, and that's predominantly the UCR that we're seeing and the trends. Only thing else that I would add in review of our report is you'll note that I know it's a little further than on our agenda, but you'll note that there was 5 referrals to the restorative justice for the month. That was youth that entered a vacant house and had a party. Received a call from neighbors that there was a party going on in a vacant house, and they had climbed in through a window and were having a good time. That ended uneventfully for us, and they were all locals and referred through our restorative justice program. I encourage you to see the training, as I always do, and I'll highlight a couple things for the month. You'll note that use of force training is on here. It's going to be several times for the year. So there's use of force training that's required and mandated by the AG, and they'll receive that. Two things that are happening this year is the AG is releasing a new use of force policy, which will not be into effect until next year, but we have a lot of significant training that we'll have to do over the next several months to get up to date for that. Another thing is the use of force portal. As a result of the use of force report that was put out, the Attorney General has now created the AG portal for use of force reports. So we're doing training on that, and we're now inputting data into that use of force portal that's controlled by the state police through the AG's office. The only other thing I'd indicate for training is we've now integrated township ordinance violations into our e-ticketing, which makes it much easier both for civilians and for our officers to enforce municipal ordinances. So that's a big plus. We only recently became certified on that, and now we're training on that. And we also are training our civilian staff at Town Hall to use the same portal for these summonses. And that's all that I have for the monthly report.
As all great stuff, Chief. I think, the overtime, I would skip over it, except to say that, there's very few scenarios in my life where I like to see red, but this is one of them.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of red in this report, and I like it. Even with the new contract, where you would expect the overall dollars, in terms of salaries and stuff to be up, we're still down slightly from 2020. So the systems you've put in place, the Power Wednesdays and with managing the staffing, managing the overtime. Anyone who wasn't a believer before, need only look at the numbers.
So I appreciate that. We've had a lot of talks on that, and it's been effective because I'm anticipating overtime, and we're making schedule adjustments in anticipation of overtime. So working within the contract, of course, but I'm doing my best, did so last year, to try to keep the budget under control. I know these are tough times.
Yeah, through the first third of the year, despite having a new contract that had a 2+% increase in salary, the fact that we are overall, salaries and OT is down nearly 1.5%. We appreciate it, particularly as we go through budget time. I'm happy to see it, and I'm sure I speak for my colleagues when I say makes me happy.
Over the year, I anticipated to catch up.
Sure.
But yeah, we're definitely doing what we can.
Yeah, but it's always good to start ahead.
Yep.
So we covered the monthly, we covered the overtime, we covered the UCR and crime trends, we covered youth restorative justice. I actually, due to another commitment, I wasn't at the last community board on police updates. So Chief, unless you or Administrator Johns has a report, I know Deputy Mayor Daffis was potentially going to join us at some point after Village Alliance, but unless one of you has a report, we may want to skip over that for now.
Yeah, I don't have anything new to report on that.
Okay.
I've been asked to meet with them, but I haven't at this point.
Okay. Committeeman DeLuca or Mayor McGehee, any questions on the March monthly overtime, UCR, crime trends, youth justice, restorative justice?
No questions for me, Chair.
I have one question, Chief. I noticed that is Sergeant Reeves doing both traffic and community service?
Yes, temporarily.
Okay.
That's so as we're switching our record management system, he will be back to being exclusively in the traffic division. So this is temporary.
Okay. And I have a question that maybe we should say for closed on personnel. Okay,
Okay,
so
well,
just,
we have a closed session after this, so,
Okay.
Once we break off into closed, we'll just keep that in mind. So we're gonna move to item 6 on the agenda, and this is something that came from a different department. It was brought to my attention by Mr. Jimes. So Township Administrator, I'm gonna turn it over to you, and the topic is safety in public restrooms.
So, we have an issue, clearly, that's been going on in our public restrooms. I know, the chief and I've talked about it. I know the department and the police department have interacted about this. I'll refrain from being too specific on the issues, but we have, we lock the door at night and it gets broken almost every time we put a new lock on, and someone is essentially living in the bathroom. Somebody is often in the bathroom at the Heart, is in the bathroom during the day. The police have been called multiple times. There is paraphernalia that is often found. It's just not a safe environment, and we have to address it as we can. There's ways to do it. It is my understanding from conversations that the methods of trying to assist the situation have been futile in terms of trying to deal with the person who may be causing the problem. Has not been successful and is met pretty much with indifference. I think the chief would probably agree with that. And, so any assistance we've tried is going nowhere. So we have an issue there. We also have an issue in one of the other bathrooms, I think in Orchard Park and the Civic House, of constant vandalism. That's probably a little harder to identify who's specifically doing it. So there's multiple issues on several fronts, and it's a safety issue, and it's a safety issue, maybe most notably in the Heart. It's more of a nuisance issue in the other parks, from what I understand. And the chief can correct me on that assessment if he thinks I'm wrong. But the Heart, we do have cameras over at the Heart. They don't face that specific bathroom. That's something we'll probably have to look at. To I guess catch someone in the act. I mean, like I said, we know the mission of this community and everybody involved is to try to assist in these situations. When, and use law enforcement as a last resort. But unfortunately, this is a situation that, that assistance has been futile and met, as I said, with complete indifference. So there have been pictures sent to me and, a detailed report. And, we just, we're looking for, assistance here, not necessarily from the committee, but from the police department. I shouldn't say they've been assisting, but we're looking for a solution. And it's not an easy solution, but when somebody checks the bathroom at night and the door is broken and somebody's in there, it will lead me or a reasonable person, in my opinion, to believe that a crime was committed and should be addressed from a law enforcement measure at that point. So, a lot of moving parts going on there, and I just maybe use that to open the discussion and generate some questions on the issue.
Can I give a little overview?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, please do, Chief.
All right, so you have 3 different locations and 3 different things happening. Clearly what's happening over at the Civic Park is different than what's happening up at Orchard. You have partying happening up at Orchard, evidence of partying. What you have in the Civic House is now, it is not what it used to be, where people were going in after hours. Now it's people damaging it during the day. So again, it's a changed animal. It's not what it was. It's not the partying that's occurring up in Orchard Park that we're pretty well used to people going into the parks after hours and partying. It's not a new complaint. Damaging the grounds, that's new. Graffiti is not new. But again, they're a little bit different in each case. D-Hart, the guy's not breaking into D-Hart anymore. We're conducting the inspections. He's going in there during the day. So the activities he was doing with the damage in the D-Hart Park overnight. That's not occurring, but he's going in there and he's wiping feces on the wall. But remember, we don't know when any of this is happening, because generally we're getting a call after the fact and he's long gone. The times that we have been there and he was there, he had every right to be there, as the building was open to the public at the time. We could take action in these cases, but it's not an arrestable offense as much as you want it to be, or would want it to be. So we know who the person is and we're addressing it as we can. As Jerry indicated, it's not a case where services are offered and you know, the services have been offered. This person in particular is been associated with the town for as long as I know. Family's been in town long time, a lot of history. This isn't a transient person. Somebody's from the area, and basically it's just not looking for anything. Doesn't want anything from the welfare department or anything like that. So like Jerry indicated, it's not like we could get him some service to make him go away. So where our presence, we are increasing our presence without trying to be overburdensome to the community. And I don't believe that anybody wants us on this call wants there to be a police officer bathroom monitor, which some could easily articulate that when we're having our summer camps pretty soon the parks are going to be pretty packed, even more they are now. That some people are going to have to be more cognizant than they are now. So I think some other people are going to have to be involved. And I have had these discussions with the recreation department for their consideration.
So I'd like to jump in.
Go ahead.
So I think we should take these separately. At D-Hart, we have the luxury of having outdoor bathrooms and indoor bathrooms. And it seems that we're having we're having a problem with covering these outside bathrooms. We ought to close those bathrooms, and we ought to have an attendant in the building to allow people to use the bathroom in the building. Because we have a lot of people that use that park, particularly on the weekends and after hours, and you know, in the evening when they're all at the playground and they're playing ball. We've got to have bathrooms for them. If we can't keep the outside bathrooms safe for them or up to a standard, we ought to just switch to the inside bathrooms and pay an attendant to be there. The door can be locked. People can knock on the door. We can put a ring button there and let them come in that way just to use the bathrooms.
Yeah, I'm on board with something like that. The D-Hart Park is a heavily recreational park where we play softball and cougar soccer, and there's sporting, athletic, rec events, club events, like all day and night. And when you hydrate, to play sports, you're gonna have to go, and especially young people. And we've got to find a way to make sure that the amenities of the park are not compromised by an individual who is not frankly doing activity that's just not appropriate, in my opinion. So if the solution is not to find a way to remove the individual from the premises for good, then we need to do something to still provide those level of services and work around that situation. But we got to do something. It's unfortunate that we're at this situation, but I'm concerned when an individual is carrying on with this type of behavior and we can't omit the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't take issue at all with the suggestion that Mr. DeLuca said. But do we essentially? I mean, what do we do during the day? I mean, we can't lock the door because he seems to get in, from what I understand, or people seem to get in. Are we just saying to just
Doors open during the day.
But if we were to lock it based on that solution, I mean,
You can lock, DPW can go
Yeah.
put some padlocks on those doors.
Mhm.
He's breaking the door. The other problem is with so many people there, even just the use, keeping up with toilet paper and keeping the place clean, we don't have that capacity. There's hundreds of people that use that park every day.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, the damage to the public bathrooms is not a new thing. I mean, they broke the bathrooms up in Orchard over the weekend, and that was just kids partying. That wasn't a guy looking for shelter.
Right.
As
So,
far, sorry.
No, I just think that we have the luxury at DeHart we don't have at the other facilities.
Right.
We ought to figure that out.
Yeah, as far as, the fact that if somebody's in there during the day, and it's obviously open to the public, it's a public restroom, it is a limited public forum or a limited public building to an extent. I mean, town hall is a public building. You're not allowed to just come in the office and sit there. So it's not a public place like a park where you're allowed to sit on the bench all day. It's limited. There are recourses for someone not using the facility as it's intended to be used.
But someone could come in to use the bathroom. A park user could come in and use the restroom in an appropriate way and then leave to continue the use of the park, right?
Yeah, but my point being is, if somebody's stationed themselves underneath the sink just to hang out, they're not using that facility as it's intended to be used. And just because it's a public place doesn't mean they're allowed to do that.
Agreed. No, and I just to confirm, we've offered the social services that are available, and we've tried to intervene in this situation, right? And it hasn't succeeded.
Correct.
Okay.
But we also, so even if you were to call the police and the police went there and said, get out, if we have situations where people are going in there and messing up the place, it becomes unusable anyway. And I think until we can figure out these bathrooms, and we're not the only municipality that has this problem.
No.
Until we can figure out these bathrooms, we probably just have to close those outside bathrooms and figure out some other way of monitoring the use of bathrooms.
Yeah, well, I mean, Chief and Mr. Johns, I think you have the Public Safety Committee's input on this. I don't think there's anything more that we can do. Now that we've sort of given our input, I think we can't actually execute. We've called the play, but we can't run the play. Mr. Johns and Chief, you guys have to now follow through and run the play from here. And to the extent you need policy guidance, obviously, come to the Public Safety Committee, come to the Township Committee. Obviously, this has escalated into a law enforcement issue and is also something that we have to deal with, administratively. This has become, a safety issue and also a quality of life issue for our residents. And as you noted, Mr. Johns, as we get into the summer, this is going to be, increasing number of young people, and, not just with parents at the park, but, through our formal recreational programs who are going to be there with camp and other programs. So I think we have to take some proactive steps here to protect them and make sure people can use the parks and use restrooms safely at our parks.
You're right. I mean, listen, I'm all, when it comes to being inclusive and looking at, I'm all for it. But when an individual is being belligerent, when they're indulging in activities that are not appropriate or technically legal unless they have a card, and being disruptive and damaging property and messing with public bathrooms for our taxpayers, I have a problem with it. I don't care I have a problem with it. So I agree with Mr. Limbrick. I think we have a storage facility in the back of the heart where certain clubs and organizations store their equipment. Is that right?
I'm not aware.
Okay.
I'm not on the rec, so I don't know.
There is a storage, another door with a storage room in there. Yes.
Okay,
I,
so
you know,
reason,
I think Cougar Soccer has some stuff in there. You know, I think a
Right.
few groups have access. It's locked.
perfect. So what I'm thinking, just thinking out loud is a solution, and Jerry and Chief, I leave it to you, but like, you know, maybe what we do is we reimagine how those outdoor bathrooms are and put locks on them, but the keys are stored with, you know, at the front desk with the attendant, or they're stored with the soccer stuff. So when the Cougar soccer team comes to play, they have the key and they can hand the key off like at certain restaurants or gas stations, you know, something where the key is only for the people that are using the field. So there's another idea. I'll let you guys figure it out. But either way, we got to solve this because it is an issue. Thank you.
So Mayor, I discussed that exact topic with Melissa. I assume she'll go through her channels to see how that works out, but we have discussed that. Just a little bit further on Mr. Jimes' comment. I'm very apprehensive about one, getting an additional camera or locating a camera and pointing it towards the bathroom door. Before I even think of that, I would want to see if there was a perspective that we could point the camera towards there. I mean, again, this is going to be an expense, who knows what, but if we could point the camera in such a way where it could not capture the bathroom door open, that would be the only situation or scenario that would present where I would say, okay, I think we could live with that. But
Yeah, of course, I wasn't
yeah,
expecting to be in the bathroom.
well, I
I
mean,
hope that was
I
implied.
fielded, you know, South Orange is getting obliterated about their cameras, and I could just imagine us pointing a camera at a bathroom door.
The chief,
So,
chief, we just talked about these cameras are passive anyway, right? So it's after the
no.
fact.
Oh no, I don't have a problem, Mr. DeLuca, at all doing it. I just don't want to be making decisions.
No. I'm not sure the utility of having a camera. It's passive. You know, so many people would go in and out. You'd see so many people. How do you say who damaged what?
Especially inside.
Yeah. Once the door's shut, you don't know what someone's doing.
You know, I was just implying that if the lock is being broken,
If
obviously.
they're prying the lock, we would see that.
Right, you'd see
That's all.
And I may be able to find a position for a camera that could capture something like that, but I got to see which way the door opens, and then got to see what that type of expense would be before I would even consider it.
So, you know, moving to the Civic House, we had a long conversation with the Y about the Civic House, and they put cameras in the hallways there just as security for their building, for the building that they rent. So are we still having problems, Chief, since then?
No, I'm only aware of one incident, and some kids went in during the day and they were living their best life in the bathroom, but they didn't damage anything, but they were living their best life in there.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it seems that issue has risen
Weed's
low.
legal now, Mr. DeLuca.
Yeah, I understand that. Not publicly, though. Okay.
But that was my understanding, and it was limited.
So it seems that what we worked out for the Civic House is still working.
Yes.
And then the issue up at Orchard Park was just this party.
Yeah, I mean, now that the weather is changing everything, all of our parks are getting busy, and we know that Orchard Park is one of our more secluded parks. For those who know that it's there, it is a treasure. So we are stepping up our patrols there, particularly to you know, just that park in particular is hidden, it's dark. So we're going to address that by increased patrols, and hopefully that fixes that. I don't see any activity that's going on there that's new or special.
And how about Borden Park with the bathrooms there?
No, we haven't had any complaints there, but I will tell you this, because I have a predictive nature in me. When we shift the problem from one location, it goes to another. So we are considering that.
Got it.
Without getting into tactics, would it be fair to say that on an overnight, your officers would be patrolling these areas generally? Or is there like kind of a routine? Again, don't be too detailed, but there's a routine that checks the overnights on these things?
Yes, particularly now.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, public safety committee meetings, you know, this is where you learn where the hot parties are happening in town. Apparently it's Orchard Park, it's the Civic House bathroom, and it's vacant houses. This is where the fun's happening. Mr. DeLuca, the next 3 items on the agenda were put on at your request. So, I'll read them off as they come up, and I'm going to turn them over to you to lead the discussion. The first is vehicle parking on the weekends for the Springfield Avenue parking lot where the Salerno COVID testing is done. You're on mute.
Yep, thank you. So it appears that the markets on Saturday are very popular, and we're running into a problem with parking for both the merchants that come there, the vendors that come there, and also the customers. And the question was, is it possible for us to open up the parking lot where Salerno does the testing on Saturday and Sunday, since they're not doing testing there? And I think, Chief, you had a conversation with Nicole Wallace about this.
Yeah, I've had several conversations about this. I frankly don't think that they need the entire park. I don't have any issue with opening it up after Salerno is done on Fridays, consolidating their area with the fencing there, and open up 10. There's probably around 10 spots that we could open up there on the weekends.
I think that would work really well. Is there anybody who objects to that?
Not at all.
So,
Okay.
Just so you know, Mr. DeLuca, that came up today, and I had mentioned it to Mr. Daffis and Candace at the time. This is a big footprint, and I don't think they need it. And if we consolidated it, they still have the safety from Springfield Avenue, which is my concern. I mean, I ran into a ridiculous issue where they didn't have parking for themselves because we have the entire lot blocked off there. I see no reason why we can't allow some parking, 6-8 spots, and then shrink it all in for the weekends for the time that Salerno was there.
Okay,
Sounds good.
all right.
All
So
right.
you'll work on that, Chief?
You said it, it's done.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Mr. Luca, item number 8 on the agenda is illegal dumping at the dead ends at the courts off Boyden Avenue.
Yeah, this came up this morning in Engineer Public Works and Planning. It has to do with Lightning Brook. It appears that people are pulling into the courts, Troy Court, Hausman, Nelson Place, backing up on the dead end there and dumping stuff over the fence into the brook. I guess the question, Chief, is do we have any cameras or portable cameras that we could mount to sort of keep an eye on this for a while? And if we find something, go back and look at those cameras to see if we can pick up a plate or something like that.
Yeah, no, we absolutely do. Generally speaking, Mr. DeLuca, unless it becomes a problem, illegal dumping usually doesn't make it to me. So if there's some reports filed about that, I'll have to look into it. We could talk further about, what information so I could have somebody look into it a little bit more. But yes, absolutely, we could do that.
Dean, do you have any more on this?
This came to my attention at Code Committee, Chief. And Bob Conklin went over there and inspected a couple of times. And he reported that this is a problem. Residents have reported it to Annette De Palma's, code inspection, code enforcement team about it. The residents who live near there, that this is happening and what can the town do to stop it. So this is how this came up.
Are they saying like overnight or something?
Yes.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, They're coming in at night.
Yep.
We had the problem on 44th Street for a while, and then we worked with Vanguard, the who owns the company there, to fix it up and keep an eye on it, but we're having similar problems. Jerry, can you work out with Annette and the chief and Bob Conklin to address this?
Well, yeah, I can do it.
Thank you. Jerry, is that a microphone? Is that like a Jack Parr microphone in front of you?
Yep.
Look at that.
It's like Larry King's microphone.
Yeah.
Gonna pick up the guitar in a minute.
Yeah, I bought one in my other town on the town money, and when I left, I was like, I missed this microphone, so I just bought my own.
Very cool, very cool. It
All
makes
right.
your voice sound great.
It does. It does. Yep.
You give us like a radio ad. All right, I can see Mr. Lindbergh wants to move on.
Well, it's your item.
Okay.
Number 9 on the agenda is the OEM virtual exercise on Thursday, June 3rd at 10 a.m. Mr. DeLuca.
Yes, thank you. So the chief and I have agreed to have a virtual exercise local in which we're going to stage a catastrophe. I don't think we're telling anybody right now, right, Chief?
Correct.
Yeah, but it's going to involve municipal stuff, school, multiple agencies, and this is just something we do every couple of years just to make sure we're covering all the bases. It's really a tabletop drill, although this usually a tabletop, we're around a table. This will be by Zoom, but we'll have all the various parties, and as we get closer, we'll inform the township committee of the details.
Okay. And does that involve the fire department also?
Yes.
Okay, and I think that's the last day of their live burn training, so that doesn't conflict, right?
They've already committed.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And by the way, Greg, just so you know, this morning we had an OEM meeting with a training with the county, and we have had Deputy Chief Ariema and a couple of times, one time Mike Weber there. So we do, they're working together, police and fire, locally on these trainings with the county.
Great. Okay, that takes us to the end of the items on the public agenda. There's 2 items for closed session, but before we get to public comment and then close the public meeting and move to closed session, do the members of the Public Safety Committee or the Township Administrator have anything further for the chief?
I do not.
Okay, gone. Chief, before we open up to public comment, anything else that you have for the Public Safety Committee?
I'd just like to say that I want to say that we welcome Ronald Smith from Irvington PD. He started here on Monday. His swearing in will be at Town Hall at 10:30 a.m. Just family and friends. We keep it very intimate.
That's tomorrow?
That's tomorrow at 10:30. I would ask, I know it's, I spoke with the mayor about this, but I think it's a good tradition for us to get into inviting our new officers to whatever meetings that we're having, in this case is Zoom, so we can introduce them to the rest of course, the TC members know them, but the rest of our public.
So invite him, would that be to next Tuesday's TC meeting?
Yeah, I mean, if that works for you, I can just introduce them for a couple of minutes, let them say a few words.
That certainly, I have no objection to that, but it's the mayor's agenda.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Chief, it's perfect.
Okay. All right, Chief, anything else for us?
No.
All right, then I'm going to open it up to public comment. Any member of the public, feel free to raise your hand or just wave your hand or unmute yourself and speak up. Going once, going twice. All right. I am then going to take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn and move into close.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. The open public portion of the Public Safety Committee meeting is now adjourned. The Public Safety Committee meeting is going, the Public Safety Committee is going to move into closed session. So the chief, the township administrator, and members of the township committee are the only people who are going to be permitted to remain. And that is all that's left in the Zoom room. So we can go ahead and start our closed session. So
We're still recording, Mr. Lembrick, unless you wanted to.
I want to stop that recording. So